think we're all set.
All right, perfect. We still have people flooding in, but we'll go ahead and get started. It is recorded in case anyone would like to go back and listen to the recording later. So I'm Barbara McGowan. I'm the Director of Financial Management for the Office of Special Services and Inclusive Education. And along with the school finance team who is here with us today, Sarah McLaughlin and I handle the early childhood special education funding. And that's what we're going to talk about today in a way that is a little bit different from what we've discussed before. So, Paula, do you want to pop on and just say hi?
Good morning, everybody. I work very closely with Barb and Sarah in making sure that you all get the funding that you need as quickly as we can. So hopefully we can all partner in this new endeavor together and have it work out right. Thanks, Barb.
Sure. Sarah, you want to just say hello?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Sarah McLaughlin. I am working on Barb's team and working on the early childhood special education.
Perfect. Do we have any program folks here? Ooh, we're going all fiscal. Okay. Well, we'll try to stay in our lane. All right. So I'm going to go ahead. Sarah, do I have sharing rights? All
Yes.
right. It's not showing me screen 3, so let's move it and see. There we go. 1. Try one more time. Sometimes when I go from Teams to Zoom, it gets interesting. All right, here we go. Try it this time. Can you see my PowerPoint, Sarah?
Yes.
Can you see my notes on the side?
Yes.
Because it won't let me do screen 3. Okay, well, here we go. We're going to go ahead and we're going to get started with what we have. If it will stop sharing. Okay. So we're going to talk about early childhood special education funding. And in particular, we're going to go over building a needs-based budget, the 3 steps involved in that process. We'll talk about what happens if our budgets to actuals go a little out of alignment. We'll talk about the reporting requirements for the early childhood special education funding. In particular, you have some enrollment data reporting that needs to be done. At the end of every quarter, you need to upload your financial information into Grants for Me. And you also have to do your 4th quarter uploads to MEFS or NEO or MEDMS or whatever acronym you use. We'll talk a little bit about the account codes for the early childhood special education funds, touch on MaineCare, billing MaineCare for the pre-K kiddos, what happens if you have a state agency client kiddo in pre-K, and then just close it out with some IDA information. The first thing I wanted to bring up, and the first thing that I do here at DOE, is create a data collection tool for my budget. And this is the tool that I use when internally we do a budget review. So it's just a little snapshot of what I use here. The first step of building a needs-based budget is to identify your students, who's coming into your pre-K program with an IEP. And I look at that in 2 different ways. If this is your first year in cohort, CDS / the ECSE team here at DOE will provide you with estimated child counts. They'll let you know about all the children you have coming into your district. Your special ed directors should have access to IEPs and your program folks. I also look at it in terms of a 3-year trend of how many children with IEPs have entered kindergarten over the past 3 years. You want to also look at your anticipated referrals and transitions from C to B. So going back to my worksheet, you'll see that theoretically, I had 14 students. The ECSE team notified me that I had 14 incoming students estimated. But over the past 3 years, I've seen 17 students come into my kindergarten program with IEPs. So I'm going to run both of these scenarios as I build my budget. Step 2 is to estimate what your allocation might look like. And Paula, I don't know if you can pop this tool in the chat, but Paula has developed a funding allocation preliminary quarterly calculation tool. And that will give you your estimated allocation for the quarter and for the year. So looking at that tool, I put in my org ID for Pine Tree School District, and I put in the 14 kids I'm expecting with IEPs, and it tells me quarterly what I can expect for an allocation given that number of students. I also went ahead and I plugged in 17 students because there's a strong probability that by the time school starts day 1, I will have the same number of students that I typically would have coming into kindergarten. So I run those numbers and I get a bit different. So 90,000 to 109 is the difference in my budget. And that's how I'm going to start to build this budget. So again, there's your 360 for 14 students and your 437. So you can see I'm filling in my worksheet as I go. The third and most intensive step is for your program folks to do an IEP review and identify the needs of the students. So they're going to look at the IEPs for total special education service minutes, related service units, PTOT speech, any specialized transportation needs. They'll identify any specialized equipment or assistive technology needs that may be incoming. Depending on the way your program is set up, you may be looking at your own public pre-K budget-wise, which is what we're going to do in the example here. But you also may have children placed in your community-based programs where you'll have to provide some itinerant services. You may have children placed in special purpose pre-Ks. So your program folks will be able to identify this for you. And what you should receive back is a worksheet that basically is going to tell you what you're looking at. So there was 20 units of speech required, 8 units of OT. Bear in mind, these are all theoretical numbers, and these are horribly low. They did identify that there were 3 one-to-one ed tech needs. They thought that there should be a little bit of BCBA support. There is a required teacher, and then there has to be some administrative support to oversee those 14 IEPs. So as the business manager, I've gone and I've decided, okay, we'll hire the one-to-ones. So that will be 100% salary and benefits. We'll allocate a percentage of our BCBA time. And the teacher also will be 100% on payroll. We're going to allocate a percentage of our SPED director and then give her some administrative support to manage those 14 IEPs. We're going to contract out our speech and our OT. So our related services at this point, we're not going to allocate a percentage of staff, which we certainly could do. But in this example, we went out to the contractors. And then I built in a budget based on my 17 kids. I assumed one more one-to-one. a little more related services in here. Always keeping an eye on your administrative percentages and making sure that they're typically under 20% of your total budget. So this is my anticipated budget for the incoming students that we have. But what happens when that budget kind of goes off track? So you're always going to track your budgets to actuals, looking at your budget as an entire year, and then this example goes through Q2. So the portion of the budget that was there to cover Q1 and 2, and then the actuals that were spent. And you'll notice that I had 3 kids placed out of district. I did not anticipate those. They weren't accounted for in my budget. They are considered a high cost out of district cost. So what you will need to do is at the end of every quarter, you go into Grants for Maine and you upload your financial data. Again, you just sign in, and there's a tool in there called Pre-K Special Education Program Monitoring. And that's where you're going to want to go. And within that tool, there's a section for these costs outside of budget. So you have high cost in district and high cost out of district. In this example, I chose an out of district placement. You'll see that I just put where the placement is. I put that it's a private special purpose. There's a start date here, no end date because the student is still enrolled in that special purpose pre-K. This is not a state agency client kiddo, and I put in the amount. What will happen from there is Sarah will identify this as needing an allocation adjustment to compensate for the high cost out of district placements. So this budget that's out of alignment will come into alignment because we will adjust your allocation to make sure that you're able to cover 100% of this cost. And then ECSE reporting requirements. I wanted to skip over this pretty quickly, and then we'll go back and we'll answer any questions that you might have. There are 3 reporting requirements. You have your enrollment requirements, which are expected to go into this state student information system. Paula, do you know if it's in there, or are we still doing manual at this point?
The collections, they're working on it. They're hoping to have it ready for testing for the April 1 account. Excuse me, April 1 count. Which, isn't far away, but it won't, but the plan is that it will be ready for full use by the 3rd year July 1 counts. So hopefully testing by April 1, so they'll both be used. So we're working on it. We're close.
Excellent. So you heard it here first.
Oh, shoot. The tool is access only. We're struggling to get the access tool in the chat. It wouldn't let me, and the one that Sarah put in is saying it's access only, so we need to work on that. So we're working on it. Sorry.
We'll get it to you. Well, it's okay. So cohort 1, bless their hearts. We will forever be thankful to them because primarily everything was a very manual process through cohort 1 and 2, and we're working to get that automated to make life easier for cohort 3. It will eventually go into our state student identification system, but right now it's collected manually by the ECSE team, and I think Jen Hopkins and Paula primarily receive that information at this point. So enrollments collected on a spreadsheet initially, that will continue until the first quarter of next year. They include all 3, 4, and 5-year-olds in pre-K with an IEP. And then counts of, you want to make sure that you provide your counts for children in child find, and that's with parental consent to evaluate. As soon as you have that documentation, you can go ahead and put them in your child fine count, and Paula will disperse $1,000 to help you with evaluation costs. Any questions about enrollment should be directed to Jennifer Hopkins, and that's her email address there. The second reporting requirement is in Grants for Maine. There's 3 sections in Grants for Maine that you'll want to complete, and we do have a training on the Grants for Maine module. Sarah, I don't know if you could pop that in the chat. That would be great. The 3 sections are your total expenditures. You want to put in all expenditures posted to Fund 2213. And then you have a high cost out of district. You want to make sure that even though you're putting that $30,000 in this example in your high cost out of district, that you want to include those in your total expenditures. Your total expenditures should reflect everything on your trial balance. And then you want to go in and put in your high cost out of district. That's just isolating those for us so we can see them really well. And then your high cost in district. I didn't use any high cost in district in this example here, but you could have a medically fragile child move into your district who requires nursing. Those are all costs typically above and beyond your general special education programming. So you would want to go ahead, and there's a section in there where you can write notes to us to explain why those costs are outside the norm. And again, we're able to make allocation adjustments to compensate for these high cost in and out of district expenditures. We ask that you upload a detailed trial balance for Fund 2213 for the quarter being reported. It's the same as you do for any of your federal grant reporting. There's a related documents tab, and you just upload your trial balance there. We typically will ask for invoices related to any high cost in and out of district expenditures. So we can give those a quick review, and the backup documentation will live in Grants for Maine. The reporting schedule is 30 days after the close of a quarter. So quarter 1 is October 30, quarter 2, January 31st, quarter 3, April 30th, and quarter 4 is July 30th. And if you have any questions about your Grants for Maine uploads, if you need some help, some assistance, or you just have general questions, you want to reach out to Sarah McLaughlin. She's generally a great contact for basically any questions you have fiscal, and she can make sure that she gets you to the right person if she's not the one to help you. And the last reporting is in MEFS or NEO. Your quarterly uploads are required quarterly. Again, they run the same schedule as your Grants for Maine reporting. So it's 30 days after the close of a quarter. And if you have any questions regarding your uploads to MEFS, you want to reach out to Michelle Alexander on Paula's team. She typically can handle any questions regarding the uploads for you.
That's not good. That's not correct. That would be Terry Beal.
Oops. Paula.
My bad. Sorry, I gave you the wrong name. Thank you, Ida.
You did, but that's okay.
I apologize.
Change that in the slides.
I am so sorry.
That will be Terry Beal, but we'll get that fixed in the slides before we send them out. That's okay. We just simply put a timeline together for all of your reports and when they are due. As a general reminder, if you want to post this, stick this on your wall or whatnot. And then we wanted to talk about the actual account coding for the early childhood special education funds. All expenses post to 2213. All expenses post to 2213. You do, however, have several different revenue codes associated with your early childhood special education funds. So any allocation funds that you receive will be revenue 3128, as well as any pre-K setup funds that get reimbursed to you through Sarah and I. Those also will post to 3128. If you bill MaineCare for your pre-K students, you want to use revenue code 4508, and that is to make sure that you are not assessed seed, because this is 100% funding. We want to make sure that you do not get assessed seed. If you have pre-K state agency client kiddos, a little person in the care or custody of DHHS, you want to use revenue code 3122. And just to kind of expand on that, on this slide, I put some guidance in here from Trista Collins at MaineCare about how do you differentiate your pre-K MaineCare expenditures from your K-12. And it's just a matter of setting up a service location code called Early Childhood Services. I'm told this is an extremely easy process. It takes 30 to 60 days for them to get you all set up. I don't think it takes a lot of your time, and just some general information that they provided to us. EFS04 is the same document that you use for your K-12. And the contact for that is Lori Freeman or sac.doe@maine.gov. You go ahead, you fill that out. You would want to do a separate ESF04 for your pre-K, and you want to make sure that you identify it as pre-K. And then just some general questions about IDA. Can you use IDA funds for early childhood special education? Yes, you may have heard me say this before, but your 619 funds cover 3 to 5 year olds, and your 611 funds cover 3 to age 22. So you are certainly able to use your IDA funds for your early childhood special education costs. This is the only time that your expenditures would not get posted to 2213. So if you use your IDA funds, you want to post to 2470 for your 611 funds, just like you would your K-12. Will there be any change in your allocations for this year for this year for cohort 3? Yes, there will. So CDS currently holds the base allocation and the pop in poverty for each of these students that will be transitioned to your school district as you assume FAPE. And that base and pop in poverty will transfer to your district. So you will see an increase depending on the number of incoming students. Could be a little, could be more, but you will start to receive that IDA allocation for those students. And then just, I've already said this probably twice throughout the whole presentation, but a great contact for any fiscal questions is Sarah McLaughlin. She's not only pretty smart and very helpful, she is so super responsive to email that I'm impressed. And the last slide is just some general there's Michelle again. We'll change that to Terry Beal. Just some general contact information for the different folks on the ECSE team here. And that's basically what I have to share. So I will stop sharing and see if we have any questions at all.
I'm just going to say that apparently Zoom at our administrative level is no longer allowing us to drop documents in to Zoom.
It doesn't surprise me. I had a lot of trouble coming from Teams to Zoom. So,
so it's not letting us. It says we can't from our computer. And when I tried to do it from my OneDrive, it said I needed security access, and it's not giving me that. And then, as you saw, the OneDrive won't give you access. So that being said, oh no, PDF won't work. Oh, that's okay. I'm going to get a list of emails from Sarah after this is over, and I will send you that tool for determining funding. It's just a template. I will send it via email. Keep in mind, it's using FY26 data, EPS rates, economic disadvantage rates from each of the SAUs. We have not updated it for 27 yet based on what we just released. However, we're hoping to do that soon, but we have been slammed with lots of things. So this will give you an idea based on FY26 calculations. We will update it with FY27 numbers as soon as we can. Then I will resend the tool with that information. Sound like a plan?
There's a question in the chat about an allocation adjustment for districts that are spread out geographically. When you do your initial budget, if you are finding that you cannot budget within the estimated allocation, what we do here at DOE is I use that worksheet that I just showed you for my tool, and I have my program folks do exactly what you would have your program folks do, and that's do IEP reviews, identify service needs, special education minutes, and then sit down and determine whether or not it looks reasonable and necessary. It could very well be reasonable and necessary. But you would want that to go under review at DOE so that we could go ahead and greenlight that allocation adjustment from the beginning. You are not responsible for seed for the pre-K kiddos. No, it's 100% state funded. So there is no local share of the MaineCare costs seed.
Barb, I have a follow-up question on that.
Sure.
When us out to all the business managers that may be on there, and maybe you can help me answer this one. When I get the reimbursement from MaineCare for MaineCare services, I don't have anything to match it up against as far as listing goes of what students they are and who's being paid on a particular invoice that comes in. So how can I annotate what's what? And if anybody...
They should identify the student that your seed report will identify this student. I'm not sure what you receive for reporting at the district level, but it should identify the student. And what will happen is you'll get two separate things from MaineCare now. One will be for that early childhood education costs. That's why you're setting up the separate service location, and MaineCare can help you do that. And they can also tell you exactly how to read your report when it comes in. Now, do you get anything from, you must get paid claims that come in.
That's what I'm talking about. I get a weekly claim that is paid, but I have nothing to back it up against. I just receive the ACH with no names or anything along those lines. I mean, it's pretty vague. So I just don't know how other business managers have handled that. Is there some report elsewhere other than the seed quarterly one that we received with each one? So that's what I'm trying to cipher out.
Yeah.
So Wendy, there's some answers in the chat, I think, that might help you.
Melanie Kaiser, you can log into MIMHS for remittance. It shows each student and the amount for the week's payment.
And your SPED director can print the seed reports that show student and services if you don't have access.
Okay.
So it looks like others are able to help you with that question.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And then Ida just put an answer to Heather's question about how we treat these funds on your warrant articles.
Kelly, you have a question?
Yeah, so Barb, you probably know what I'm going to ask, but I'm going to ask it for the larger group in the sense of, because I see kind of a related question in here. So when you're talking about reporting all of the early childhood expenditures to 2213, except for like stuff that's allocated to local entitlement, what you're really talking about is reasonable and necessary, though, right? So, for example, we're choosing at our district to hire an ESEA coordinator, right? Which we're only really allowed, as far as the DOE is concerned, to charge 20% of that person off to the ESEA funds. So largely that other 80% of that person is going to be within our local budget. That's how we're budgeting for this person. So there's kind of, I mean, to me, it's kind of like there's two lanes here, right? Because I can't charge that person 100% to 2213 because when I hear you say all expenses, that's what I think. But what we kind of parceled out was really it's all reasonable and necessary charges to 2213. And if you choose to go over and above, then that's on your local budget. And I think the best way I can compare it is the essential programs and services model, right? We're saying the DOE is kind of determining what is reasonable and necessary. And then if you choose to go above that, you can do that, but it's not like, how do we report that? Because I see somebody in here that talks about like a full IEP team. And from what everything I've heard, it doesn't sound like that would necessarily support like a full IEP team because we have to then parcel it out per kid. So,
Yep. So you're right, Kelly. If a district decides to hire a position for so let's just go with my example. We have 14 kids. That is not a sufficient number of students to support a full-time IEP coordinator. So if that district decided we do want an IEP coordinator, we want to do some future planning for maybe a day treatment type early childhood center or something along those lines, and we're going to need that person full time. What the allocation funds do not cover is the future planning piece. We pay for the actual service provision of special education for students in pre-K. So you're right, there is a distinction between what is deemed reasonable and necessary, and what qualifies as the district's decision to kind of proceed in above and beyond the basic needs of what the IEPs dictate. So you're right, there is that distinction. And then of course, in my example, those 14 kids, if that district decided we're going to go ahead and we're going to hire this person and allocate 20%, we'll use your number. And then I start with 17. And then before I know it, I have 25. Then I may be able to rethink a percentage of that person's time in the early childhood special education. So what we can't do is we can't create budgets for the future. We have to create budgets to cover the now. So you're right, there is a difference between what you may consider as early childhood special education costs, in that we separate that into needs based versus planning based. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I'd like to add a little perspective too. And I want to first say that I'm sorry that we're all having to deal with this issue. But statute does require at this time that we cover 100% of the expenses. And the purpose for that was to keep it out of the EPS model. The hope for doing that, at least my understanding of it, is that we didn't want it to overlap into the EPS funding model because it is completely separate. However, that being said, there was very little guidance on what that would entail. And you, as well as us, are responsible for ensuring that taxpayer funds are properly used. We are being asked by the legislature to provide reporting on how is this money being spent. And so it's our responsibility to ensure that it's being spent wisely and that the more funding we need is legitimate funding. Not saying it wouldn't be legitimate. I'm not second guessing. We're not trying to second guess what you need. Okay. We don't have the ability to do that. However, we're on both sides of this, and I know you are as well. you're on both sides of it as well on your locally. You need to provide what your people say you need to make this work. We want it to work. We also need to provide what you need, but we also are within restraints of, hey, there's just so much money available to me. So it's unfortunately a vicious cycle that we're all in together. And so we really are trying to work with you in the best way possible to provide exactly what you need. It's hard. And I just admit that up front. It's hard for you and it's hard for us. Um, and so I hope you understand, like with Krista's note in the chat, anything that's in an IEP, if it's in the IEP, we're not gonna question it. I mean, right, Barb? Am I saying that right? An IEP is, but
Right. Yeah. I mean, one-to-ones. If you
right,
have a kiddo come in that needs a one-to-one, you have to have the one-to-one. And budget's not something we can look at. If that accelerates your budget beyond your allocation, it shouldn't. The per pupil should cover, but it could. And if
right.
it does, that's why Sarah and I are on the back end of every quarter, really keeping a very close eye on what you had for expenditures, because it is possible that the allocation could fall flat, and we don't want that to happen. But at the
And there,
same time, like Paula said, we are charged with monitoring, and she's right. We don't like it. We would rather say, you get X per child. That's what you get. There's nothing we can do. But instead, we're put in the place of having to determine whether or not something is reasonable and necessary, and it's not fun. Kelly, did you have another question?
Just to follow up. So, Paula, with that said, like, we're building a ship as we're trying to
we're
launch
still
it, right?
flying the plane, and we're just
Exactly.
still putting in
So,
the
so
landing gear.
I guess on our side of things, if we do in fact do like what I just described, what we're opting to do, should we potentially code it somehow, especially within the local budget, so that later on, if the legislature's saying, hey, Paula, does this work for everybody? And is it truly funded where it is? And there may be some wiggle room at some point for more administrative type costs to be included in it in order to feel like we're providing what we feel is the best educational option for these kiddos. Should we be capturing that now within our local budget under some different numbers so that you can use it later in reporting?
And this is the struggle that Ida and I are having. And she's giving me that face, and I'm going to let her talk if she wants to. Because if we have expenditures that are truly for this demographic of student, pre-K, IEP, that bleed over into local/EPS, there's going to be a problem with funding. And I'll let Ida speak more to that if she wants. She came off mute, so I'm assuming.
Yeah, I did come on, Mike, because, essentially we are trying to keep everything related to this in that 2213, but I like the idea that if you say you're spending 70,000 more, that we can monitor that and and bring it back. I mean, I still think this butts against the statute that says the state pays 100%. So I'm a little bit at a loss there, but I'm gonna look into that and talk to the team and see where we could put a code
To
that
capture those additional ones that may not be related to what Barb said, current costs, but
right.
future costs that may be pertinent and necessary. Pertinent and necessary. There we go.
Yeah.
So I like that thought as well as something we can look into to capture them somewhere. But maybe it is still a local thing for now, and then we can look into it later with more discussion at the higher level.
I see a couple more questions in the chat. One is, what does DOE consider to be a reasonable number of students that would justify an IEP coordinator? And I have not heard of a number, but I did see Sandy Flack here, and she may or may not have information. Sandy, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I know my name says Holly Green, but that is because I was quickly jumping from one meeting to another and I jumped on through Holly's registration link. But for those that don't know me, I'm Sandy Flack. I'm the Deputy Director for the Aussie team and helping support this transition. So to Angela's question, we did put out guidance about looking at your budget development when you are thinking about administrative positions. And what we did is we really tried to provide some basically budget bands for you to stay within to ensure that your budgets were not being excessive in one area over another. Remember, most of these costs should be focused on services to students. While we know the ECSE funding formula takes into consideration many other different things. So we took the information that we had from cohort 1 and part of cohort 2 to help build these kind of guidance bands to help support that. So it's not really about like, is there a certain number that rings the bell for an administrative position? Schools do it differently throughout the state, and that's what we've seen. Some people have their director do some of it. Some of it share it with an elementary principal. Some hire a 282B teacher that does some direct service and might do some case management and administrative duties. So we couldn't necessarily capture all the variety of ways that schools are doing or supporting the administrative side of this through a simple, like, 0 to 5 students means you get X number of dollars towards a position, because it really doesn't fit the state as a whole. So that's why we attempted to do that through that guidance. And yes, we can push that out again. And once again, as we continue down this journey, we are gaining more and more information on how SAUs are developing their budgets, allocating their funds. That gives us the feedback that we need as well to update our guidance. So this is what we have put out now to help support all of you to develop those right now. If you're in, I should say, looking at being in cohort 3.
Sandy, I just want to respond to that and say
Yeah.
thank you, because we are a district that chose to do things a little bit differently than some of the very good advice that we received from cohort 1, advising us to hire coordinators for the program. And so we really started from scratch. And so I say that because if our district was used as one of those, data points and all of that collection of how are districts structuring their staffing and their resources to do this, in year 1, we started from scratch with nothing extra other than the beautiful supplies and materials that Lori Whittemore helped us with. So I just wanted to provide that feedback and to say thank you, because that you would continue to monitor it, because as we look at year 2, it will be different than having started from scratch.
Yeah. And so, Angela, not to call you out in front of everyone, but I'm assuming you didn't allocate any of because what you have done is not uncommon. There have been other districts that the director really wanted to build the program and have complete oversight to ensure that it was where they wanted it before they kind of brought somebody in to train. And so have you as a district allocated any of your time during this? So that would register as an administrative cost.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
What I was saying is we didn't hire somebody from the beginning to do that work. And so we had to allocate various positions that have been helping to build it from the ground up. Obviously, not just by myself. I have a whole team of people that have been supporting this work, but the team existed. And so we just had to really shuffle things around. And so, we knew that would be burdensome by the time January came around and we started receiving all of our eligibility and Part C stuff coming through. So we're feeling that and building a different budget for next year. So I appreciate the commitment to continue to monitor it. That's why
Yes. Yeah. And I'm assuming, looking at Barb and Sarah, that we're capturing that administrative even though it might look a little different next year, we're still capturing it as an administrative cost to factor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Angela said they're allocating a percentage of staff time to the project. So yes, we are.
Yeah. And I just want to scoot back up to Krista's question, if she wants to come off mic and kind of explain the question a little bit more so that I have a better understanding. And I know Barb sort of answered it.
Absolutely. I'm concerned about the fact that we might have an IEP meeting where we say, this student needs a one-on-one or even special purpose private school. And then when Barb and Paula are looking at the funding, do they then get to, what I'm hearing them say is that they then get to make a decision as to whether that was
Oh,
necessary.
no.
No,
We don't
no.
override an
To
IEP
make fun,
decision.
to give funding. So I guess I don't understand.
If it's in the
when you
IEP,
say you're making decisions about what's necessary and what's not, what is that in reference to?
It's mostly administrative time. It's mostly the subjective time. That's why we keep talking about IEP coordinators, administrators, assistant sped directors.
van purchases, is it really necessary? Things like that. The over and above, not the specific for each student.
Exactly. If there's a
Okay, because
one-to-one,
that was not clear to me. I was thinking about it in terms of personnel, but
yeah,
you see
not
what I'm
at
saying?
all. If it's on
We
the
would
IEP,
never override an IEP decision at
no.
your local level. That is not our
That's why
purview.
I was like, this doesn't
Absolutely
make
no.
sense to me.
Sorry if you
So,
thought that.
okay,
No.
thank you. I appreciate that. So that is very helpful. But I'm also sitting here thinking, like, when you're talking about, because we don't have a business manager right now. And so we're all trying to do everything together at the central office level. And I don't have an IEP coordinator. So, and there's not money for an IEP coordinator. So now, and Deb just posted, she has 2 CDS people at each of her meetings. And I generally have 4 people at my CDS providers when I'm attending those meetings. And I'm thinking, so I'm supposed to now be doing the work of 4 people plus my K to 12. Do you know what I mean? It just feels very overwhelming.
Yeah. So Krista, if you would like, we can schedule a time to meet to look at I can walk you through what other schools maybe your size have done. And I think we've already had this conversation, but I'm more than happy to help support that conversation. In reference to what CDS is doing versus what SAUs are doing, I think you all know that this is part of the change that we need to have happen, is that we are very administrative heavy in CDS for a variety of reasons. I don't need to get into them in this meeting, but that is one of the reasons why CDS is struggling and is not working. And so we need to shift. We're shifting that to the public school. This is your model. This is how you make it. We want it to mirror what you're doing for your K to 12 students. And so please don't factor in that what the number of CDS staff they have at meetings. It's a different system. And we want you to make it your system and work with what you currently have for your K to 12 model.
But also, Sandy, for that, I would also say where Krista's talking about being overwhelmed, there's a lot of support still within the CDS framework, correct?
Yes.
For this transition, especially. So I don't want to hear of anybody being overwhelmed because we want to support you in any way we can.
Yeah, we have some schools that, based on the number, they didn't necessarily need a full-time person. So we have our CDS staff working underneath them doing case management, IEP development, writing things. Once again, it's under the SAU. We are a contracted provider.
And
But we
Krista said they
have,
don't have an IEP coordinator, so it sounds to me like that a lot of support can still come from CDS while they're
it could,
managing their own transitions at the SAU level.
yes. Yep.
So
And that is part of the way the law was written. It is a, it is a triangulated support. It is CDS, the Department of Education, and SAUs together in this.
we don't have a lot of time left, but I want to address some of these questions in the chat. I'm really sorry. I seem like I'm taking over, but the one from Dawn about supplies and materials or general fund, please do not put anything in general fund that is related to the pre-K with IEPs. Everything, supplies, materials, portion of electricity if you want, however you want to do it, should be under 2213. Please do not commingle any of these costs for these specific students with your general fund. That is very important. And if you want to talk to Ida and I about that more, we can certainly do that. Deb Murphy asked if there's a cost to a district if you contract with CDS Service Hub. Sandy?
So there is a rate sheet and we can get that for you. We are currently working with Barb and her team. If it's a CDS preschool service, that looks a little bit different than our other services. And there will be more information coming out on that as we update that.
Andrea asked about when the recording is available. And as far as Barb's presentation, I believe the link was already put in the chat, Andrea, if you scroll up.
I think that was the link to the Grants for Maine training, Paula, but
okay.
Sarah will get it posted.
Okay.
And so I'm gonna take the reins back from you for a minute and
Go for it. Take it up.
Do we need staff time and effort for this? The 2213, no, we do not. These are state funds, and time and effort is a federal requirement. Will there be a mechanism to support the onboarding of CDS staff to SAUs to help districts like Krista, where there is substantial shortage of 282 staff? That's from Angela. Sandy, is there an onboarding process?
Yep. So if you are wanting to work with your CDS support and service hub for specific services, let's just say it's a teacher, an ed tech, or somebody to do some case management, there's a process for that. And to ensure that the CDS staff are familiar with your unique district processes and procedures, we will definitely work with each SAU on that.
It looks like you have Darcy reaching out to you, Sandy, aka Holly, at the moment.
I know. One thing to note as we are moving into that season where administrative positions, business managers, all of your central office staff, there might be some turnover before next year. And we know this happens every year. We are going to be offering either a 1 or 2 day PD session for new administrators. And I don't mean brand new. I mean, you're new to a district and you need to figure out what this transition looks like in the district. We saw that this was a real area where school districts struggled a little bit last year with the transition. If there was a new special ed director or superintendent or business manager and they weren't quite up to speed with where their district was. So we are planning that. So look for that to be pushed out as PD for new to either the role or new to the school district in the probably in August.
All right. Well, we have 4 minutes left.
I just want to say thank you all. I know this is a huge lift.
It is.
And we really are here to work with you. So please reach out and thank you for all you do.
Yes, thank you.
Have a great day.